Hey everyone, welcome to my channel Soul Vibes. It is Celinelizette here, and if you are new, please subscribe to my channel where I'll be talking about all things soul related, my experiences, my spiritual journey, and just hoping that I can give you guys insight and tips from the experiences that I've learned. And really quickly, before I get into the video, if you can, please like, comment, subscribe, like I said, and share the video. Okay, so getting into today's topic, I am going to be talking about something that I am extremely passionate about, and I have been working on this for such a long time. It truly is so important for, especially for ladies, and I was gonna make this originally like a ladies real talk, but anyone, men in general, people can definitely benefit from the tips that I'll be talking about. But yes, I'm going to be talking about stepping into your power. And this is extremely important because it really helps you evolve as a person. It's, the journey that I've been on, the spiritual journey, but not only for like awakening as a person, but learning to love yourself, learning to build a strong foundation where you're comfortable within yourself, where you become whole as an individual, without all the external things that I think we have a misconception of, that sometimes we think like we have to have these things in order to be powerful. And like for me, it was always about things that I had, like the money that I made, all that stuff is what I equated to power. And looks was very important to me as well. And although those things are still important to me, it is so different than how I used to be. Stepping into your power really has nothing to do with that. It's all about who you are and how strong your core is, like how confident you are within yourself, true confidence, not your ego. And yeah, just self-love, all of that stuff. It really goes, it coincides, it goes hand in hand, and it's just important for us to get to our higher selves, to step into our power. And that's something that I had such a hard time with. I had to learn deep down like why I wasn't in my power. And for a lot of us, it stems back to childhood. It stems back to when we became insecure, and then really when I started building a fake foundation. Again, it goes back to your ego. I think it's not only these things, but these are definitely the main components that I think are very crucial to stepping into your personal power. Okay, so the number one thing you need to look at is currently your life. Like, how happy are you doing what you do? If you look at your life, what you do in a day, how much time do you have for yourself? How fueled are you feeling? Like, I think that's the number one thing that we can really look at. Like, how drained do you feel constantly? And for me, I have another video on how I recently quit my job, but I think that was the number one factor for taking back my power. The first step to taking back my power is really getting real with myself and being, to be truly authentic to who you are, to live an authentic lifestyle. You have to ask yourself, like, what are you doing on a daily basis? What does your life look like? Are you happy with where you're at? And if you're not, like, what can you do to get there? And for me, that really was completely changing my career, which is what I'm currently doing right now. And it's kind of like the easiest thing to look at, but also maybe the hardest thing to look at, because some people will feel like they can't just get up and change their job, or it's really hard. And it was extremely hard for me to let go of something that was so important to me. And for me, what I equated as power, which is how much I was making and what like my title was, my status, how I looked to other people and the external world, which, if our society, like, that is really such a big thing for us to like put on this persona to the world of what we want people to think our life is like how happy we are, like we're doing big things, we're living a really cool luxurious lifestyle. That's how I felt. And so I had to get real with myself, because I was crying constantly. I was not happy. I was looking for happiness outside of myself. And yeah, that's really not being in your power. So the first thing to look at is like, I would say like your career, or just your life and what you're doing for most of your time. Are you fueling yourself? Are you fulfilled? How much inner peace do you have within yourself? If it was taken away, how happy would you be then? How much would you feel like powerless if it was taken away? Because if there's one thing that I've learned in my journey is how temporary things are. Are you living an authentic lifestyle, or do you hate your life and you're just waiting for the weekend to come so you can drink, get drunk, forget all, do drugs, all the stuff, hang out with people that may or may not be good for your higher self and for your highest good? But all those distractions that we use, like, are you just waiting for the weekend to come around so you can be distracted, and then, you know, just that routine that basically I was in. 2 is really what I just mentioned about using the distractions and all the things that you can think of that you use as distractions, including friends, including relationships, you know, things like that. How dependent are you on these external things? And this is extremely important because that tells me that you are not really happy within yourself. If those things were taken away, if you know, lost your friends, or if you no longer were with your significant other, like things like that, that take up so much of your life that actually can sometimes be hindering you from growing or from changing into being the highest self that you want to be. Not always, but you know, for me, I did have a lot of things that I was using as a distraction, and I think a lot of people do. But these things that are external from you, how dependent are you on them? Because if they are taken away, like I said, that will leave you feeling empty. And if you're feeling empty, that means you have a lot of work to do on yourself. Because, you know, if even with friendships, like I feel like there's certain people that I know, and I used to be the same way. You place so much value on these friendships, and sometimes they're not even friendships that are good for you. And, you know, they don't help you grow, or they're keeping you stuck in places where you know, basically, yeah, you're just not growing. And then the other thing is, like, sometimes that causes you to put people on a pedestal, and that's, you know, I should make another video on putting people on a pedestal. But when you do that, for example, with friendships, which is something that I used to do, I would put them so high that, you know, I would expect so much from them, like so much loyalty, so much trust. And I'm not saying that, you know, I would ever have friends that aren't loyal to me and things like that, but it's like I would constantly be disappointed if they weren't doing this, this, and this. You know, I had a list of the things that my friends should be doing, that my relationships, you know, should be making me feel like all these things. When you do that, you are putting them on a pedestal, and it's unfair to them. And now that I don't do that anymore, it actually brings me so much closer to my friendships. It makes me feel more grateful for what I have, rather than feeling like I didn't have enough, because I was constantly being disappointed, because when they don't do things that I'm expecting them to do, it's like I would feel let down. I would feel, you know, like, ugh, like, you know, it's them, it's not me. And it's like, no, you have to really get real with yourself and look at what you're expecting from your friends. Stop expecting, like for me, I would expect me from them. And there's a quote that says, stop expecting you from other people. And now what I take that as is, you know, I think it can mean a lot of different things, but what I take it as is, stop expecting that other people are going to give you what you would give them. Because for a while I was going above and beyond or, you know, I at least felt that way for relationships, for friendships, and that's not healthy within itself. Like, there is a boundary, there's a balance. It should be equal give and take in all relationships. And I definitely need to do another video on that. But first and foremost, it needs to be equal give and take. It's not always going to be 50-50. Sometimes it'll be like 60-40 or 20-80, but like, you know, then it has to be balanced and flip the other way around. If you're giving too much, like, that is definitely not being in your power, because, you know, we have to receive as humans as well. That's just what fulfills us and all that stuff. But anyways, so I was expecting, you know, so much from friendships and relationships, and it's just really not fair to place them on a pedestal like that. Stop expecting you from other people. So now that, you know, I really learned how to be dependent on myself, even if I didn't have those friendships, because at one point there was a point where I felt extremely alone. I didn't really have anything, and I've talked about it in other videos. Like, my external world kind of crumbled on me, like from physical appearance, how I looked, because I have another video on it. My hair completely got botched. So it's like, you know, for me, I felt like my identity wasn't as strong as I wanted it to be, like it used to be. And then friendships kind of came crumbling down. A relationship, I was in a very toxic relationship. Like, everything you can think of, it was crashing down. I was so depressed and just alone in my apartment. And I learned in that time, from then to now, how to depend on myself. I appreciate my friendships so much more. It's like, I know that I would be okay without this stuff and without these people, but it's so much better with these people. And I no longer expect me from them. I have me, you know, I expect me from me, and that's about it. That was more on friendships. But for getting back to relationships, the same thing. Really, it is crucial that you are not seeking happiness and validation from other people. And that is something that I really, really used to do with my relationships. Like, for me, I was so insecure with myself, and I didn't know, this was all subconscious, but I didn't know how much pressure I was placing on relationships to make me feel a type of way. Like, so I didn't feel alone. So, I felt more secure and confident with myself. Like, I had a boyfriend, like, it's not a prize to be won. It's not something, that you should be using to validate yourself. You should be okay with being alone, and you need to make yourself happy first and foremost. Like, above anything, you are your number one source of happiness. So if those things aren't there, or if you're in a relationship, you end up breaking up, like, you need to make sure that you'll be okay and that you won't feel like your identity is lost, because that is how I felt at one point when I got out of a relationship. The other thing is, validation from other people. Like, and that's something that I constantly still work on, but we expect so much validation from the outside world, from social media to even our friends, and constantly asking people for other opinions and just worrying about what other people think. Like, you need to start listening to the stories that you tell yourself. And for me, I had such negative thoughts and beliefs about myself, and I kind of first started hearing them in like the job that I was in, but I had been so used to telling myself how bad I was at just multiple things, like all these negative stories, like between not feeling pretty enough, not feeling good enough, and just my capabilities as a person, like all of that stuff had a negative thought tied to it in my head. And I had been telling myself that for so long that, it became true to me. And even though there was times, it's like that was the foundational beliefs that I had. And yes, there was times where, I felt like really cute when I would get ready, and then, like, those beliefs were temporary and based off of external things. And when I had my boyfriend, like, that, it was also based off of him, like, oh, I have a boyfriend now, like, it made me feel a little bit more confident. But again, those things are external, they're temporary, or even if they're not temporary and they are permanent or whatever, it's like, it's still outside of you, and it can change at any moment. So you need to make sure that the beliefs inside you have a strong positive confidence that is unshakable and unchangeable, even when the other things outside of you do change. That really creates the ability to not seek validation from others, basically, and just make sure that you are validating yourself. That's it. And the last point I wanted to make about relationships is that sometimes, I used to think this for the longest time, that I wanted, to come together with my other half, and we together, us as two halves come together and we are one whole being. But that's really not true, because again, I used to feel so unhappy, and I felt like, oh, another person is going, I used to have this thought in high school, and I think as women with Disney movies, like the society, the way we're raised and everything, it's like, yes, we are taught we are going to meet the man of our dreams and we're going to live happily ever after. And it is so wrong for us to be taught that, because we need to make ourselves happy first and foremost. Actually, I shouldn't say happiness, because that is also, again, temporary. It's a feeling. It comes and goes. But inner peace is something that we should strive for. We should have inner peace and have a solid foundation on our own. But anyways, my whole point is, we need to be whole as an individual. And then the most ideal situation, our Prince Charming, our king, whatever, as we become queens, our king needs to be whole as well. He needs to be a whole individual who has that strong foundation, just like if you have your strong foundation that you've worked on, exactly the same. And then you guys come together as two whole beings to be one whole entity. That is how relationships should work. And that also, then you guys are both in your power, and that is a true power couple. So just had to throw that point out there. Okay, so the next point that I want to mention is your relationships with people in general. So whether it's relationships like, boyfriend, girlfriend, or girlfriend, then your friendships and relationships with your family, all of that. Any relationship in your life with another individual. It is so important that you have proper boundaries set in place, and you remember that you are teaching people how to treat you. So this was probably the number one lesson that I had to learn, that really was one of the main catalysts to me breaking down, to me feeling, just completely like shit and having to transform, is how I let people treat me. And it is so important, because, it's crucial that you don't let people overstep you, that you don't feel like this is my notebook. You don't let people overstep you. You don't let people gaslight you. You don't let people just cross boundaries when they shouldn't be. And for the longest time for me, one, I am a Gemini. So if you know anything about Geminis, they don't like confrontation. We like, we don't like dealing with things that are uncomfortable. And I feel like we're always trying to make light of situations. So for the longest time, when people would, just cross a boundary or do something that I didn't like they were either, being rude to me slightly. Even in the program that I did in San Jose at work, it was very much like a college environment. And when people would like kind of say something rude, it was never in a very upfront, like rude way. It was always kind of like in a joking way. And I would let people do that. If anything, I would constantly laugh these things off. I would just, like make it seem like it's not a big deal to me, when in fact I knew that now looking back, I knew how much it did bug me because I felt a type of way about it and people just didn't treat me with respect. And I let that happen because I didn't say anything and I didn't stop it. In fact, I kind of just like let them joke around about it. And so my whole point is that because I didn't want to make people feel uncomfortable, it went back to, even though they were trying to make me feel uncomfortable, I hate making people feel uncomfortable in any way. So I wouldn't say anything because I didn't want to be that person that's like, oh, she can't take a joke or she's not. I always wanted to be like the chill person when it was so dumb. People were being rude and I should have said something to stick up for myself. And then there's also times where I know that when you're truly in your power, you don't necessarily have to say much to show that you're not okay with how someone is treating you. But there are times where you can defend yourself and you should defend yourself, put your foot down. But other times where I don't necessarily need to, I can be silent. I can ask a question like, what do you mean by that? Or, just throw it back at them with like a small, one-shot sentence or question. So either way, I should have reacted differently than how I did. But that was something that I really had to overcome, remembering or learning that people will treat you how you let them, and you are teaching people constantly how you want to be treated. So place boundaries immediately when you need to. And it's a little bit harder with family and relationships, people you're closer with, people that you've known for a long time, because they expect you to be a certain way. But as you're changing, you're evolving, you're growing as a person, you're growing into your higher self, you are changing. So you may have less tolerance for people who treated you a certain way that you didn't like, and that's okay. So, as you get better at placing boundaries, it's of course you got to start somewhere, and it's all about practice. And so I think, it's easier with certain people, start with that, and then, just implement it every day. And as you get better at it, you'll be able to do it with people, relationships that are a little bit harder for you to do that with. Honestly, I could talk about that point all day, because there were so many situations that I've been in at work, at the corporate job that I used to work at, where I felt so uncomfortable. It took me a really long time how to learn to place boundaries with people. But, even with men, and it's not necessarily people being rude, but I was in a technology field, which is dominated by males, sales engineer, that was my title. So I was surrounded by males all the time. And there were certain situations where I felt very uncomfortable. Looking back, there were things that I know I could have done to prevent that. But again, learning lessons, I still put down my foot somewhat, but it's like, okay, now I know what to do to not ever let myself get into a situation like that. And so, it really comes back to, I don't care what other people think. If I make them feel uncomfortable, then so be it. But I'd rather put my foot down, let them know, that they crossed the boundary, rather than me having to go home, think about that, and just not feel good about how somebody treated me, or, if I feel some boundary has been crossed. That's really what it comes down to. And I like it that way. That's part of stepping into your power. Okay, so the last point is a little bit more lighthearted, and it is somewhat external, but I think it's a crucial part of stepping into your power, because it goes back to you feeling good about yourself and just, being powerful without being, in your ego, but a true sense of power, a true sense of confidence. And part of that has to do with your physical appearance. So something that I'm currently working on now is just my health overall. And I think that's what it comes down to. Not so much your looks and external, oh, I have to be a certain amount of pounds or anything, but how you fuel your body with food, how, you know, how good you feel about yourself. I've been extremely overweight before in high school. I'm not gonna lie. I'm 5'6". The highest I ever weighed was 184. Yeah, it was after crash dieting, and not only did I gain the weight that I lost, because I did get down to like 130, 138 or something, and then I gained all of it back plus more. So anyways, I could do a video on that because now I'm almost close to my goal of getting to 135. How it really goes back to like lifestyle, how healthy am I eating? Because health, again, it's what is fueling you from the inside out. Beauty really is from the inside out. And so your body is your temple. So, you know, just doing what you can to make sure that you are comfortable with what you feel about yourself. And yes, you know, looks come into play. If you are feeling overweight like I was at one point, and you're just like sluggish and you don't feel good, like all of that is what I'm talking about when it comes to the physical aspect. I feel like I'm honestly having a glow up. Like people are noticing how happy I look, and how just the vibe I'm giving off is much more vibrant and glowy. So part of that is because I am eating healthier, I am taking more care of my body, and it's not from a place of self-hate like it used to be. Like I used to hate how I looked. I used to feel so insecure. I was like constantly striving to have a really good body, but more so because I didn't like the body that I had. And now I really appreciate my body. I love my body the way it is. Even if I didn't lose weight, I would still be happy with where I am. But I know, you know, I'm trying to get to my higher self. I know I have it in me to eat healthier and to get to my goal weight. Like it's much more motivating, and I feel more inspired, you know, like I'm just more confident in my ability to do it, and I feel good doing it. So that was the last thing that I wanted to mention. It is a little bit more lighthearted, but just fueling your body with healthy foods, making sure you're energized, and feeling the best that you can in the body that you have. Those were the main components that I wanted to talk about for stepping into your power. Just, you know, some of the things that I've done, the things that I've worked on that have really, really helped me gain more of a solid, like, inner confidence and foundation that I did not have before. And, you know, it is coming back to how much you invest in yourself and how much you heal yourself. It's eliminating that like ego surface level confidence, because that's exactly what I had. It was, again, all based on external things. Those things are temporary. They're external from you. So now I am my number one source of happiness. Inner peace being the key words. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please leave some comments below letting me know what you think. As always, peace, love, and soul vibes.